I am recording. And
Okay.
Ben, I noticed that you're like leaning a little forward. You don't really need to do that. I can hear you.
Yeah, you're right. You know what it is? It's this chair. Check this chair out.
I thought you had a mic there. I thought you were like leaning into the mic.
The chair is just like this wooden, old, like solid. I'm not very comfortable.
I
got to get like a pad for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a mess. Sorry for I guess we leave that in the pod. I don't know. People know what my chair looks like now. Good morning, Flock Squawk Nation. It is November 17th, a few days removed from a clunker of a game. So I guess I'll start out by saying I saw this coming. I had on the Ravens prediction pod for the season totals that they would lose this game in Miami because I just assumed that Miami was going to build off of what they did in their 2020 season. And I just didn't we were coming off of a bye week. We've had a month straight of being in the bank. We lost pretty convincingly. The final score was 22-10. I'm here with Chad Cummings and Brad Cummings. Caw boys, how you doing today?
Caw, what's up, guys? Doing good.
Oh, not much. I guess let's just get started with general impressions. Like I said, I thought that they would lose this game. You guys were a little more optimistic preseason, but we'll start with Chad. What were some of the big takeaways from this loss that you saw on Thursday night?
I'd say when it comes to the predictions we had, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of your reasoning for predicting that we were going to lose was, a short week. Miami at the time, we thought Miami would be a better team based off their performance last year, but this year has yet to be good for them until the last two games. So going into the game, I was on board of this should be an easy win. But we saw what happened to Detroit and all. So I guess you can never, like Brad says, any given Sunday or Thursday, you never know what's going to happen. But I'd say, the biggest impression for me was our offense.
It was pretty bad. I mean, we were basically, I think we were gifted a touchdown. The one touchdown that we had in this game, I think the Dolphins combined for like 30 something yards of penalties, which actually got us. But other than that, we were completely flat.
Lamar started getting some of those, typical pocket passer penalties at that last drive, which was, it's cool to see, but some of those were like, come on, man.
Yeah.
The second roughing the passer he got was pretty bad.
Terrible.
Yeah. So that's the only point of the game that we saw any, promise from our offense, except for the first drive. And I was watching the highlights. I'm like, what was the difference between the first drive and the rest of the game? And it seemed like, I don't think we got into third down positioning. Like we were constantly getting first downs on that first drive, and we were going, outside runs. Freeman, we did a screen pass to, I think it was either a sweep or a screen pass to Duvernay on the outside to get us in position to get that first field goal. So I don't know. I guess it was that Miami's defense with that cover zero. Kind of once we started getting into third and longs and third and fives and stuff like that, we, for whatever reason, we couldn't, with cover zero is everybody is blitzing except for there's man across the top and the DBs. So if there's four wide receivers, there's two cornerbacks, two safeties, and they're all man. Or if there's three wide receivers, there's a safety, two corners, and the other safety's blitzing. So everybody's coming, and it's one-on-one for whoever's running a route. So the way to beat that is, you get the ball out quick, and your wide receivers have to beat man-on-man coverage. And you guys have been harping on that all year, especially with Hollywood, is that our guys can't beat one-on-one coverage. So it's a combination of that, and the offensive line just wasn't, giving Lamar enough time. And I'm not going to say Lamar wasn't at fault either. Like, he needs to get the ball out quicker too. I don't think we converted a third. I think we converted 2 out of 12 third downs or something crazy like that.
Yeah, not great.
And every single third down was a 0 blitz, 0 coverage, 0 blitz. So they just didn't. But for whatever reason, our offense coaching, our offensive players didn't adjust.
Yeah, there was no adjustment. I agree with that. There was also some really weird play calling in this game. We're going to get into that a little bit later in the pod. And I don't know whether it was the play calling or whether it was just the decision from Lamar Jackson of where he put the ball. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Brad, impressions of the game. You texted me the most dramatic negative text I've ever seen in my life. You're like, we are winning 0 more games the rest of the season. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? It's good. We're going to take some time off. Brad's going to calm down. Wednesday is going to roll around. Brad's going to have a change in heart. Things aren't as bad as they seem. Brad, what are your impressions of this game, man? Do you still feel like this is the end of the world as we know it? Or is there reason to be hopeful going forward for the rest of the season?
I was definitely upset. I won't lie about that.
Yeah, you were.
But yeah, I was pissed. I was sitting there watching it at work too, which kind of really pissed me off. It is what it is. I'm just more mad I finished the game, finished watching it. I should have just turned it off at halftime when I noticed that our $20 million man missed a field goal. We found out that he was actually human this weekend. So that kind of sucked. But it is what it is. It was such a shitty team to lose to. Like, I feel like it's just as bad as Buffalo losing to Jacksonville, and it takes like our offense. They completely made our offense look like we've never really played before. The first 2 drives were pretty solid, but other than that, we're playing the 29th ranked defense in the league when it comes to total offense, passing 28th, rushing 15th, and passing we are 10th in the league. Rushing, we're number 1 in the league, and number 2 total overall yards in the league. That's pretty ridiculous. So we're playing pretty much one of the worst teams in the league defensively, and they completely shut us down. So that super sucked. I think we got exposed offensively. Like, just rush. Everybody knows that our offensive line is depleted, but they just rush us. And we don't know what the fuck to do at that point. He does need to get the ball out a lot quicker. I feel like that would help us out. But like, as you said, our play calling is pretty whack. I think we ran the same 5 or 7 plays throughout the whole game, which seemed like, hey, get the ball to Hollywood for some reason. I'm going to start calling him Hollywood again, just because I was nice to Marquis Brown because he wanted to student. I'm going to call him Hollywood because he keeps dropping passes. But yeah, dude, we just look bad. And I'm very upset that we didn't use Bateman as much as they took Sammy Watkins and started him over Bateman this week. And you see how that ended up. There's 2 touchdowns that have happened offensively. Both of them coming around Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins falling against Kansas City, pick 6 by the Honey Badger. And then Sammy Watkins fumble. And then, I don't know. It is what it is. Like you said, we'll talk about it, but I was not very impressed. It's short week. We played Sunday, come back Thursday, but it's said today, so it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's interesting on the offensive side of the ball, right? Because Rashad Bateman was targeted 8 times in this game, and he had 6 receptions and 80 yards. He had a long of 30. And then Sammy Watkins, he was targeted 3 times, 1 catch for 7 yards. So it's just kind of, and then I'm just letting you guys know I'm out on Marquis Brown. I'm out. We're going to talk about that a little bit later because I have a long rant on this guy. But let's talk about the play calling. I'm going to give you some examples of some plays that I just was like, I have no idea what we're doing. And they all seem to come on 3rd down, right? Yeah. So on the second offensive drive, there was a 3rd and 10. We threw a screen to Marquis Brown that goes for 7 yards. He then fumbles it, and Rashad Bateman gets all over it. And you go, okay, so now they have to punt. The fifth offensive drive, there was a 3rd and 10. They pass it to Marquis Brown again. He only gets 3 yards. There's a 3rd and 15 later in, I think there's like 11 minutes in the third quarter. Lamar slips again. This guy has a problem. I think his equipment managers need to like get him some different cleats or something like that. He's the only quarterback I've seen sliding around like every single field is wet.
Yeah, his feet move too fast for his own good is what it is.
Right. And then so he spins out, he gets away, he throws it downfield to try and make a big play. And it's the same thing we've seen from Marquis Brown that I've seen in previous years, where he's in man coverage, one-on-one, the ball's in the air. He's got time to come back and make a play on the ball. And the defender is all like, he is just not a receiver that's going to go up and get the ball. He's just not.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to say it.
Mhm.
At that point, you got to blame that on Lamar Jackson, because you have him one-on-one, and he's obviously at a size disadvantage. But then right in front of him, 10 yards closer, is Mark Andrews, sure hands, big body that can get up and go get it. And he's also one-on-one coverage. So that is just decision-making in my eyes. Granted, I mean, I know he was like under pressure and everything, but you got to throw that ball to your tight end, not to your favorite receiver. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's either, I don't know if he's the one playing favorites or if it's the offensive coordinator saying get the ball to our playmaker in Marquis or Hollywood. But yeah, he needs to, that play should have went to Mark Andrews rather than Marquis Brown. And I mean, honestly, in my eyes, the same thing should have happened for those two screen passes you were talking about. What happened? They literally, all they did was just flip the play. It's the exact same play. All they did was flip it. It didn't work the first time. He fumbled it. Why do it the second time? And then he gets less yards on the second one because there's missed blocks. The guy that was playing him stayed at home, didn't even fake on the fucking his step, just stayed at home and got him within 2 yards. So like, why even play that? Use your sure hands. Use Bateman. Bateman has clearly, in the 4 games he's played, showed that his hands are strong as shit. Put those two people at the line mark, or put them 1 yard over the line mark on a comeback, and then hit the motherfuckers and make the big bodies, make the big hands, make the catch. If they make that catch, 4th and 1, we go for it anyways every other time. At least it puts us in better position than giving it to 5'9" Hollywood Brown and try and make him go through 4 fucking people.
Right. Yeah, it just didn't make much sense to me. I was very confused. I was just like, I don't understand why we're doing these short. And part of it is these guys are not getting open. I saw a lot of behind the quarterback cams, and I'm looking down the field, and I'm just like, golly, where's he supposed to throw the ball to? You know, it's the same problems that reared their ugly head last year. But let's flip a little bit. Let's talk about the defense. Kind of a weird game. I'm going to read some stats to you, and I just want you to tell me what the impression of this is, right? So I'm going to go through a list of Miami wide receivers, and I'm going to give you their longest play of the game. So the play where they gained the most yards, right? So here we go. Albert Wilson had a long of 64 yards. Isaiah Ford had a long of 52 yards. Jalen Waddle, the rookie, who is probably, he's going to be a stud, long of 35 yards. Adam Shaheen had a long of 21 yards. Durham Smythe had a long of 23 yards. And Myles Gaskin had a long of 14 yards. I have heard of two of those players.
Yeah.
We give up big plays. What's the deal? Is this like a communication issue with the defense? Is it defensive scheme? Chad, like, what do you think about this, man? Because it is troubling.
Yeah, it was like every other play left and right was like a big play. Like when we think we have them stalled on defense, it was like, I was watching the highlights, and we were like we're getting decent, pressure on the quarterback, but it was like Jacoby Brissett was, just, rolling out to his right and then hitting somebody deep every single time on these third downs. And, for these big plays, I'm just like, it has to be, coverage and communication in the secondary. Like, these guys are wide open all the time for, like, It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's just missed assignments, right? Like
Yeah.
Chuck Clark takes a bad angle, or Anthony Averett doesn't pick up, lets him go. I think like Chuck Clark has played. It's been rough this year for Chuck Clark. I'm willing to give him another year. I'm not out on him yet. I just think he's had a rough stretch.
Safeties, I mean, safety is our biggest issue, 100%. They're supposed to be safety help, and they do not help for shit. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like Chad was talking about that play where Brissett was rolling out to his right and then hit that deep pass to Ford. When that play was in zone, looked like he either was in zone and stayed and thought he had to help over the top with Clark. And if you watch the game, Clark came down, he was in the box as if he was blitzing, and then wheeled out as soon as he snapped it. But he goes up the middle and then towards the left side of the field where Waddle was one-on-one with Humphrey. So I don't know if Clark didn't play it right and he went the wrong way, or if Averett just thought he had to help, so he let Ford get behind him. Either way, it was bad communication between Averett and Clark, and that was just it's basically a free play. I mean, and it was absolutely bogus.
And it's so weird because the defense too, like there were times where we had these crazy red zone stops. And I didn't look at it positively at all. I looked at it and I was like, well, I hope we stop Miami. They're a team that's 2-7 in the league. And that says a lot about the Dolphins. They couldn't finish in the red zone. But when we didn't have them in the red zone, we're giving up these massive plays on defense. And like, I just don't know. It's weird because with our defense, yeah, there are a lot of injuries and a lot of guys have had to step up, but Chuck Clark is a starter. What's the solution? Is it, we kind of have like a mini bye week this week. What are some of the things you think should be addressed on the defensive side of the ball before we play on Sunday against the Bears?
We need to find that guy that can be that voice and coach on the field on defense. On the front line, you had Haloti Ngata and Terrell Suggs. Then in the middle, you had Ray Lewis, and then in the back end, you had Ed Reed for the longest time. And some of the best players to ever play those positions all on one team, and they know exactly where they need to be at all times, and they know how to coach up players that are a little bit unexperienced and tell them where they need to be. And then after that, we got Eric Weddle, and he was able to be that guy to coach up the defense and show where everybody they need to be. Then it was CJ Mosley for a short stint. And now it's like, who is the leader and who is, telling everybody where they need to be? I mean, there's nobody on our defense that has that kind of experience, wisdom, and ability to coach up everybody and tell everybody where they need to be. Like with Deshaun Elliott out now for the season, our rookie Brandon Stevens got the start, and he got 67% of the plays. And up to this point, he's been a relief, playing nickel and stuff. I mean, he's been playing decent, but and what can you do? We have injuries. So we got Chuck Clark, Brandon Stevens, who's a rookie, and then Geno Stone played 25% of the snaps at safety. I mean, I think he's a second-year player, but he was a 7th-round pick.
Correct.
And then Jimmy Smith, who's one of our, oldest dudes, and he only got 10 snaps at safety. And we thought, and from the previous pressers after we heard about Deshaun Elliott, Coach Harbaugh said it's going to be, a rotating thing with Jimmy Smith, Brandon Stevens, Geno Stone, and even Anthony Levine. I don't remember. I mean, I think Anthony Levine had a couple snaps, but I don't remember seeing him that much. And he's an older dude, and he knows, he should know the defense well, but he's more of like a role player. He's not like, leader in the defense, but we need someone. I don't know who's wearing, do you guys know who's wearing the mic on the defense and calling the plays and stuff? Is it Queen? Is it Bynes at this point? Because Bynes is the old, like he's the only dude on their offense or on our defense that is, seems like he knows what he's doing.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting what you said. I'm not sure who wears the green dot. Yeah. I thought it was Bynes, but I could be completely wrong on that. You can leave a comment in the comments section and maybe you can clear that up for our listeners out there. But yeah, I think that's bad. I don't like that they're putting just random, we're going to have a rotating secondary and we're just going to see who pieces in together and who plays well. Like that is a troubling sign. You should have a guy back there, or at least have a backup that okay, like it's surprising that we are this thin on defense. It's something that the Ravens notoriously have not been for a lot of their existence. Let's switch gears here real quick. The offense. Yeah, I'm out on Marquis Brown. I really, he was awful. He had a fumble that he was lucky got picked up. 6 catches, 37 yards. He averaged 6.2 yards per play, I guess. And I guess that's good. A lot of little screen passes and stuff like that. But Brad, when was the last time that you saw Marquis Brown just like fly down the field on a huge play? I can't remember. I have no idea. He likes to talk about how fast he is, and he'll post stuff on Instagram about him outrunning ball machines. And yet I never, ever see that translated on the field.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was a fumble by Sammy Watkins that was kind of, I don't know. It was close. I guess it was a fumble. At first I was just like, what in the world is going on with that? I thought that maybe he just dropped it. I didn't know if I guess he had 2 steps. It was a weird play, and he picks it up and scores the touchdown. But up until that point, Miami's only in the lead 9-3.
Yeah.
What happened with our offense? And can this offense, the way that it's constructed and with all the injuries that are piling up on this team, is this an offense that you look at in January and you say, yeah, that's a playoff caliber offense?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like we got away from. I mean, obviously, I know they were blitzing a lot, but I think we got away from the run. Like, they stopped the run game pretty well. Obviously, Marquis. Yeah, to answer a question, Marquis Brown, the last one I can remember was that one. It was like the back. I forget what team it was, but he hit the
Cincinnati.
the back of the end for Cincinnati, as that was. But yeah, that's the last like big play that he has made. I mean, he's made other catches. Shit. Like, I mean, not really dropped as many balls as he's dropped in his last game in a while. Like, over time, I mean, he's dropped more balls in the first half of the year than freaking people like Fitzgerald has in his entire career. But like, it wasn't a good showing. I don't like the fact that we don't use Bateman enough. To be honest with you, to me, he is our best receiver. We picked him up to be our number 1, so why not use him as our number 1? At this point, I do just feel like they're just kind of riding Brown and it just being Jackson's favorite target. He hit him. He was targeted 13 times. How is that man targeted 13 times over our other receivers is beyond me. And then when it comes to the offensive play calling, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, dude. Like I said, I think they played like the same 7 plays over and over that didn't even a lot of them didn't work. And especially like you said, that screen pass, which was absolutely horrendous. It did work on one of the plays. I think it was like the third quarter where he actually went up the sideline for like 12 yards and got a first down. So it did work. But Lamar rushed for 39 yards, Freeman rushed 5. Which is absolutely terrible. And we were sacked 4 times.
As far as yardage is concerned, we are ranked 27th in the NFL total yardage from rushing the football, which in turn is basically making Lamar Jackson throw for 40 plus attempts in games. We are not going to win games like that. It's not how we won in 2019. Our running back room is just, I don't really know what else to say. Like, the Ravens finally cut Le'Veon Bell. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But going back to my previous question, like, is this an offense that you look at in the playoffs and lining up against other AFC teams? I don't know if they could keep up. Do you?
No, their defense, the AFC has 2 good defenses. That the teams that are ahead all have great defenses, and if we are doing this bad against a Miami defense, and their defense is literally ranked in the lower scale of the league. I mean, like I said, total yards 29th, passing 28th, rushing 15th. points, 24. Like third down. I know we're shitty on third down too, but they're also shitty on third down. They were just less shitty on third down.
Right.
Like we were at 1.0-7, and they are ranked 29th third down. So it's just all around. We got beat. Like I said, that's why I said I think we got exposed offensively. We can't block. Just come at this. We can't block, and our offensive coordinator / our quarterback, when it comes to thinking on their toes, can't really make a play, unfortunately. And we're about to play a lot better defenses. Cleveland's a really good defense. Pittsburgh's a really good defense. Rams are really good defense. Green Bay's a really good defense. Bengals again. Like, we're all good defenses.
Yeah,
So,
we're going to talk about that later in the pod too, because I think it's a murderer's row too. It might be a must-win game against Chicago next week. But let's talk about some news that happened this week. So 2 big pieces of news, right? The Ravens finally cut Le'Veon Bell. He finished with 83 yards and 2 touchdowns in the 5 games that he played. Chad, I wish I could say it was a feel-good story, but it kind of wasn't. We knew he was a guy that we picked up off the street to try and make things happen, and it didn't end up working out. So what does this mean for other running backs on the roster? Again, we've talked on this pod a lot about Tyson Williams. I think we're all high on Tyson Williams. I think he just has maybe one flaw in his game. But without Le'Veon Bell now, is it just going to be a lot of Devonta Freeman, and will Tyson Williams get more touches? Because I'm just not, we have Lamar Jackson leading our team in rushing this week. And one of the rushes was Devin Duvernay on a 19-yard sweep. It was the longest, but he's a wide receiver. What does it mean that the Ravens have cut Le'Veon Bell, and what do you see from our running game going forward for the rest of the season?
To me, it means that Latavius Murray will be coming back soon.
True.
Or not if not, he'll be coming back like this game. The timing of it makes sense there, and I think they really like Devonta Freeman has shown up pretty the last. He's been running pretty well.
Yes,
especially so I think,
and
but that doesn't mean I don't think cutting Le'Veon Bell brings Tyshawn Williams back into the role. I think they're gonna go with the two-headed thing with Latavius and Devontae. They've just been playing really well, and I think Taysom Williams is going to be in the same position that he was. Coach said in a presser last week that people are asking about Taysom Williams. The media was, and they're saying, if you're going to be a running back in this offense, you got to do all the roles that a running back is expected to do. Run the right. He said, run the right routes, pass protect, quick decision making, going to the right holes, catching the ball. So it seems like he's just in the doghouse with our coaches. They obviously watch the film at each game and see what players are doing more than we do. And it seems like he's just not making the right decisions when he needs to. He's an undrafted player in his first 2 seasons. So, he's definitely the younger legs and more explosive, but he's not a great overall back at this point. So I think this means that Latavius and Devontae are going to move forward as like a 2-headed monster type deal for us.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. Like, we don't see what goes on in practice. We don't see what goes on in meeting rooms. We don't see any of those things. And yeah, I don't know if he's necessarily in the doghouse. Maybe they use him later down the stretch when, we have a murderer's row coming up. I keep calling it that.
Yeah.
Maybe they just want to keep him fresh for that stretch too. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying because they think that he's this second coming at running back. I just think that with the lack of depth at running back, the guy that you have on your roster who is explosive and can average over 5 yards a carry, maybe you save him a little bit later on in the season too. So you work on those things that he needs to work on in practice. And then, probably a couple weeks from now, maybe we see a little bit more of him now that Bell's off the roster. Another big loss, Derek Wolfe is out for the season.
Yeah.
They announced it yesterday. Did did he play in any games this year? I
No.
don't think he
No.
did. He didn't play in a single one, right? Like,
he got hurt before the preseason game against Carolina.
right.
At the joint practice.
Right. Yeah. And so I guess it's not a big deal that he's on IR for the rest of the season. Whatever injury that he had, it obviously was bothering him a lot.
Yeah, I think his back was fucked up. But
His back injury.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
So
they took him off IR. He didn't make the 21-day window, and I think they just decided just to sit him the rest of the year because obviously he's not progressing at all. So
right. Yeah. No. Yeah. It seems like that.
Seems like a big surprise because they didn't put him on IR this whole time, so he's been basically a wasted roster spot.
Right. Yeah.
So
right.
They were expecting him to come back, but it just hasn't panned out.
Yeah, well, it hasn't panned out for a lot of guys that we have on IR. It's just like it's the season of the witch, I guess, in Baltimore. Let's go ahead and let's take a break because we're going to talk about the Chicago game, and then we're going to talk about playoff implications in general, because there's a lot of teams in the AFC right now that are absolutely on fire. And there's an interesting thing that I found out about point differential for the Ravens. So when we get back off a break, we'll talk about that. Okay, so here we go. Next week, it's week 11. Golly, like this is it like, does every football season just feel like it flies by to everybody? Like, I feel like we should be at like week 6 right now. It's so strange.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the matchup predictor for this game. We are at Chicago, a 3-6 Chicago team who's lost 4 games in a row. The matchup predictor has Baltimore at 62.4% for the win. The spread is -6 Baltimore, and the over under is set at 45. It's a very similar line to the Dolphins game. In fact, it's so similar that if I go down to the team stats and I look at them, again, the Ravens statistically lead in every single category except for one, the pass yards allowed. I don't want to make the same mistake we made again in the Miami game, but Brad, we'll start with you. What are your predictions for this game? Do you have a score for me? And is this like a must-win game for I know every game is a must-win game, but like down at this stretch of the season, is this a must-win game for the Ravens if they want to make the playoffs this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a must-win for sure. But seeing that Bengals are only 1 game behind us, Steelers are only 1 game behind us, and Steelers now have a tie, which down the road might fuck us if we're tied with them, because obviously if we're tied with wins and they have a tie, they're going to take the lead ahead of us. I think that it's going to be, they're a good defense. They're not the worst defense. They are going to end up being more trouble for us, I feel like, than Miami was. Obviously, I feel like we were just exposed, like I said. They're a pretty good defense. They're going to be rushing us. They have 25 sacks on the year. They jacked Roethlisberger, I think, 4 or 5 times last game. So expect Lamar Jackson to go down a lot of times, him to be rushed, him to have to run out of the pocket, make plays per usual. I see it being a kind of a close game again. The defense isn't that good, but they do have Montgomery, who's a good running back. He just came back from IR. He played pretty well against the Steelers. And if he's not in, the backup is pretty good. Fields is finding himself with getting some passing touchdowns. He's good on his feet, kind of like Lamar Jackson. So I see it being like a 23-17, 23-17, 10-20, something like that, with us taking the win. But I don't see us like blowing them out or anything like that. I really don't feel like that's going to happen, but it is 100% a must win, especially with the games that we have down the road. All the people that I just told you about us being close to Pittsburgh and the Bengals we played. That's 3 of our next 6-7 games. So it's a pretty big deal, but I don't expect it to be any kind of blowout or anything like that.
Yeah, the Ravens scoring 23 points. I got you 23-17. You cover the spread if you do 23-17. Why not?
I'll take it.
Chad, what do you think, man?
I mean, normally I would say we blow out this team. You got a rookie quarterback. You got a struggling offense. Their defense has been solid, but struggling offense. They're the 31st ranked offense in the league. But we just got beat by a very similar team. I mean, I would say a worse team with, Jacoby Brissett was starting against us and he got hurt halfway and then injured Tua comes in and they still get the win. But the story was our offense against our defense, and for whatever reason, our offense just couldn't get shit done. So I can't, in good conscience, say we're going to blow this team out, even though I want to say that. So I'm going to say it's another close game too. I'm going to say 17-14 Ravens.
Man,
I'm going to.
Chad, you took my pick. We're
Oh,
gonna
I
have
took
the
your.
exact
Oh
same
man,
score.
you should have went first, boy.
No, it's
But,
okay. I like that. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
But with their offense, like Justin Fields seems like he's coming into his own. If it wasn't for crazy bad officiating, I say they win that game against Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So look what Miami's offense did to us in the big play picture.
Right.
Like number two on Miami, Wilson. Who the hell is number two, and who does number two work for?
Well, that play right there, Chad, was a broken play, 100% though.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like they got Allen Robinson. Yeah. They got a rookie tight end who's, I didn't realize how big he was until I watched the Pittsburgh game. But they got a rookie tight end, which people are saying a lot of promising things about him. He hasn't had a great season yet because the overall offense hasn't, but
right,
he could be an issue with his size. You got Allen Robinson, you got Mooney, there's other wide receiver, and then not to mention their running backs. They have decent running backs, and our defense is, still they're not. I don't see how they get any better anytime soon with all the injuries and the inexperience we have in our defense. So I think it's gonna be a problem, but I think we can overcome it because Lamar Jackson. That's our only hope.
Right.
And Justin Tucker, but
yeah, the $20 million man always plays
$20 million
a role.
Man.
I know that he missed a field goal, but he also made a field goal as well. So,
one for one.
50%. That's terrible, right? Never mind. How about this? I have the Ravens winning 17-14. Justin Fields' stats this year: 4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Lamar Jackson, 14 touchdowns, same amount of interceptions. I think this is a game where Justin Fields is going to run a little bit more. I think we're going to see his legs a lot more. It's funny you say that about big tight ends. Something we didn't talk about with the Miami game was how tiny our defense is. Mm-hmm. Like watching Mike Gesicki is like, and then they had a bunch of guys who are just gigantic. And then I realized how small we were.
I think Mike Gesicki is their smallest tight end.
I know,
like 3 or 4 big white dudes. Some of them are wide receivers, and the other 2 are. And they were catching.
Gesicki didn't catch a pass.
Oh yeah,
that was the best thing we did on defense, besides that strip fumble, which was a good play, which we didn't get anyways. But yeah, we totally left out the fact that we shut down Gesicki, who was their leading receiver besides Waddle. And then also, yes, their tight ends are huge, but our players are just tiny as fuck. Like that, if you guys remember that pass that went down to like it was third and 1. Brissett threw a pass down to, I don't know, Sweeney or something. I don't know any of these tight ends' names besides Gesicki. But he threw it down. He caught the tight end caught the ball and pretty much sat down on Clark. Like mm-hmm. Clark looked like shit on that play. If he looked like a child playing with his grown ass uncle in the backyard on that play. His position was terrible. He somehow got behind the tight end, and the tight end literally just posted up on him and literally sat on him. Like, I think the only way that Clark gets that tackle is because he fell and tripped the man.
Right.
So again, you could tell the size difference, but also our safety play is trash. I hope that we end up using Jimmy Smith at safety more often, just because he's a bigger
size. Yeah.
He's 6'2". He's a big body. He's a little bit slower because he's older, but he's a safety. He doesn't have to be that fast. That's why you got the cornerbacks. The quarterbacks are fast guys. The safeties can be a little bit slower as long as they're playing their position right. Yeah. I'd just rather use him.
He only got 10 snaps last week, so yeah, we'll see I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, it's just I'm glad that we went back over that because I was watching the game and I was just like, dude, our guys look so small. Like the Dolphins just have like California Redwoods playing for them. How are they 2-7? Okay, so here we go. After the Bears game, we've got the Browns on Sunday Night Football. Then we're at the Steelers, which is a late afternoon game on the 28th. Then we got the Browns again in Cleveland. Then we're home against the Packers, at the Bengals, home against the Steelers, and home against the Rams. Flip those games, though. We play the Rams first. This is a must-win game for the Ravens. Like, we knew that the back half of their schedule was going to be brutal. But after watching them against Miami, I am like, I don't know. I think 17-14, the Bears getting 14 points is just because I think that their offense is kind of like inept at this point. I don't think Justin Fields isn't ready. I think he could be, but he's not ready right now. And if we go up 7-3, if you look at the rest of the AFC, have you guys taken a look at this? There are 12 teams in the AFC with a 500 record or better.
It's really close.
The Patriots are surging right now. I mean, like, they've won 4 games in a row. Tennessee, we thought that they would slow down. They haven't. They've won the two games without Derrick Henry. And I found something interesting too. So there are 8, well, let's see. There's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 8 teams that have a record of 6-3 or better in the NFL right now. The Ravens have the worst point differential out of all 8 of those teams at +14. The next closest team, oddly, is the Green Bay Packers. 8-2. They're the top team in the NFL. But you have to remember that Jordan Love played one of those games. And they still have a point differential of +36. The defense is amazing, obviously. But it's shocking to me that this team in particular, the Ravens, it's like they're not necessarily the best offense. They're certainly not the best defense. I'm worried about this team down this stretch of the season. I don't know what it's going to look like. We are no longer playing a month stretch at home. We're playing against all of our divisional opponents pretty much. I mean, how many of these games are divisional games from this point out? We've only played 1. Yeah.
5, yeah.
I want your general takes before we get out of here. Like, is it realistic that the Ravens, hold on and they make it to 12-5? Or is this a situation where I could see them potentially, if they don't beat Chicago, I don't know what this team is going to do.
Yeah.
Chad, go ahead. You can give me your impressions first.
No, I'd say coming into this game, I am a little worried because if we lose this game 6-4, just like the rest of the AFC, that could really put a hurting on us, especially because, I mean, since Chicago should be the easiest game for the rest of the way,
Right.
And if we're worried about the easiest game, what's that really say about the rest of the stretch? It's tough, man. I wouldn't say it's a must win, but I would feel a lot better if we won, because then we're 7-3. We're still hopefully a game and a half lead in our division, depending on how well our division folks play this week. So let's look at that real quick. Cincinnati plays Las Vegas. They're both 5-4. That could go either way for me, in my eyes. I don't know. But that's that. I mean, Cincinnati could win that or lose that, putting them. Pittsburgh's playing the Chargers. I don't know. Chargers are suspect, man. I think Pittsburgh can win that game, unfortunately. And Cleveland's playing Detroit. I think Cleveland bounces back and destroys Detroit. So
yeah, Chubb's gonna run all over them.
Yeah, I think there's a chance that all 3 of our division foe win this week. So I would like to keep that lead and win this game, especially going into that stretch, man. Yeah, 2 games against Steelers, 2 games against Cleveland, 1 game against Cincinnati, and then we got to play Juggernauts. We got to play the Rams, even though they've been kind of suspect the last 2 games, but they're going to get their shit together. And then we got to play Green Bay. Yeah, it's not. I'm not as confident that the way we played the last 2 games, our offense that we can get to that double-digit win total.
Yeah, and here's another thing we forgot too. Chicago's coming off a bye as well, so
Yeah,
they're going to be a
true.
little. We're coming off like a mini bye, I guess, when you play Thursday and you don't play Sunday.
Yeah, true. But
So I don't know if that affects anything too much. Brad, what do you think? Like, is this a must-win for the Ravens? And do you see any teams on the horizon that are going to be a problem? I have a hot take, actually. I think the Browns might lose to the Lions. But Brad, what do you think?
Personally, yeah, yes, obviously to me, it's a must-win game. It's already November. We've lost one game already in November. We got to win this game. If we lose this game, it's a must-win again next week against the Cleveland Browns. So week after that, but I feel like we have to at least get one of these two games is next week's, and then we got to win out. Just when it comes to December, you can't lose in December. If we're making a playoff push, December is the month that you can't lose, and then we have two games in January between I think it's Pittsburgh and the Rams, or maybe it's just the one game in January, which is just the Pittsburgh game when the
There are
ninth.
two. Yeah, it's the Rams and then the Steelers. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, it's a must win at this point. But I think we can actually allow ourselves to lose one or two more games before the end of the season. But I much rather just win it out. Obviously, nobody wants to lose a fucking game, but we have to beat Chicago because if we lose two games straight, I don't know what that does to the locker room. I feel like it's just gonna bring down we just lost, but we just lose momentum. What do we win? We win five. We lose the first one, go five straight, and then we come back and lose.
Yeah, there's
4 or
definitely going to be
5 of
some
our next.
finger pointing, right? Like, I don't know. It just, with the way that everything is set up, and, we had a fortuitous week last week in the AFC North, right? The Steelers tied a Detroit Lions team who I think have a lot of heart, just not a lot of talent. We almost lost. It took a NFL record breaking kick for us to get past that game.
Mhm.
The Bengals didn't play, and the Browns got their ass kicked by the Patriots, who now, they look all the way back. The Chiefs won last week. I don't know. The AFC race we knew was going to be tight, but we wanted to be the team where if you were to look at it, you'd look at the Ravens and be like, oh yeah, they're a lock for the playoffs. I don't know if you can say that. I'm not convinced that you can say that. And if we put up a stinker against the Bears, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing going on as to, it might be the same conversations that we had last year, right? Where it's like, why do we still have, Greg Roman calling plays for us? Why is Wink Martindale blitzing all the time? And some of those same fingers are going to be pointing in a bunch of different directions. So I don't know. It's a tough one, boys. I think that the Ravens will pull it off. I just think it's going to be ugly. Yeah. I think it's going to be an ugly. It's in Chicago, and we know how that city is in November and December. I guess the one thing that's good going for us is Lamar has a pretty good track record in November and December. But with the way that the schedule's set up now, our home games are hard as shit. The Rams and the Packers and the Browns and the Steelers.
Yeah.
And it's just like, golly, dude, like whoever the back half of this schedule might be, I would be interested to see if there are any Flock Squawk listeners who are fans from other teams. I don't know why you would be, but maybe you are. Who knows? Leave it in the comments section. Like, does your team have a worse schedule going on in the back half? Because I'm looking at the Ravens and I'm just like, I have no idea how this is going to play out at all, really. Okay. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we get out of here?
Nope. Let's get a win, baby.
Let's get a win. Yeah. Right before Thanksgiving too. Like, I think that it would just be nice to have something positive to talk about, because when I was watching the game, I had nothing positive to say, really, like the entire game. So, all right. I think with that, we'll be out of here. Make sure that you give us a follow on @Flock Squawk Podcast for TikTok, and then @Flock_Squawk for Twitter. We're going to be putting out videos throughout the rest of the season. Obviously, you know that. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. And we will see you all next week. Brad, Chad, Caw, boys. Have a
Caw.
wonderful rest of your week. Have a great weekend.
Adios.
And we're going to beat the Bears.
We're gonna beat the
I
Bears.
sure hope so.
We'll
We're
beat
gonna
the
beat
Bears.
the Bears.
Watch, this will be the intro for the next podcast if we lose to the Bears. Okay, boys. Have a
Take
good
care.
one. Caw. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Peace.